Hi everyone, it's Ardith, and today I've got a card using New Essentials by Ellen products and both positive and negative masks to create a multi-layered look on a one-layered card. Today I'm part of a blog hop with the other Ellen Hudson design ambassadors to celebrate the latest release. All the details are on my blog, so check it out so you can hop and comment for a chance to win. I'm starting with a 110-pound card base in Neenah Solar White. And the first thing I'm doing is masking off the edges so that I'll have a nice clean white frame at the end. My blood pressure tends to go up sometimes if there's no white space on a card, and this 1/2-inch purple tape is an easy, no-measure way to create a border. I used the grid markings on my work surface to make sure everything was straight and approximately equal around the card. To give the card some mobility, I folded the excess tape around the back so that it won't stick down to my work surface all the time. Next, I stamped the first Mondo Oak Leaf onto the card front using Wow embossing ink. This is the newest in the Mondo series, and it's perfect for fall. It has this big leaf arrangement, an acorn, and a couple of seasonally suitable sentiments. Try saying that 3 times fast. Seasonally suitable sentiments. Anyway, I remembered just before stamping to prep the cardstock with my anti-static bag, and then I closed the door of my MISTI to stamp down the image. I then used some gold Wow embossing powder, sprinkled it over, and heated it with my heat gun until it was melted and smooth. I did heat the powder on that purple tape just so that I didn't risk brushing up against it and getting it everywhere. I cut some masks using the coordinating die, and I used some repositionable tape to adhere the first one over the leaf image. The mask that is the shape of the image is called the positive mask, and that first image will appear to be in front of everything else that I stamp. Now, I cut my masks from scrap paper, and because of the dimension of the embossing, they are not sticking particularly well, and you'll see me fiddling around a bit to make sure everything stays in place. You can solve this problem by using sticky masking paper or by not embossing the stamped outlines. Anyway, I positioned the stamp on my MISTI, stamped it, sprinkled the embossing powder, and heated it. Then I filled in the rest of the card front in the same manner with partial images. I made sure that each one was stamped onto the mask. This is what is going to give me the layered look. This time I did more than one at a time because they're not next to each other, so I wasn't worried about the embossing powder traveling. I tried to fill in as much as I could because I knew I'd still have that white border around the edges of the card. So now to color the leaves, I used the rest of the paper that I had cut the leaves from, and this is called the negative mask because it's masking what's around the image rather than the image itself. I put some repositionable adhesive on the back, and then I placed it over the first leaf image. To prevent boo-boos, I added some post-it tape. This had the added advantage of helping the negative mask stick a bit better to the card as well, and that was helpful. I used a pretty fall trio of colors: limoncello, party dress, and eucalyptus. I knew I would get great blending between the yellow and pink to create an orange, and also between the yellow and green. I used my Waffle Flower water media mat and some life-changing blender brushes to blend the ink over the leaves. The white surface of the mat means I can see where the ink is when I dab it off, and I can go back and pick it up and use it for my blending. I blended the colors over the leaf image randomly, but keeping in mind that I wanted to achieve good blends between the yellow and the pink and the yellow and the green, but that it was probably best not to try to blend the pink and green together too much, or it would get kind of muddy. I started with the lightest color each time and worked to the darkest, and this will minimize contamination on my brushes and ink pads. I went in with different amounts of pressure too, so that I would get brighter and duller areas. When I finished that first leaf, I had to use the positive mask again to protect the blending I had just finished, and then I put the negative mask down so that I'll be able to blend ink onto the next leaf. I repeated the blending process, but you can see there's that little area of the first leaf under the positive mask, so that first layer of blending will remain clean. I repeated the process for the next leaf, and I lifted the mask so I could see which color was on the leaf already. That way I could choose a different color on this leaf to emphasize the contrast and keep the definition between the leaves. I continued until I had all the leaves colored in. This is a fast and easy way to get an artistic look, and you can see that there are way more than 3 shades on these leaves due to the blending and variation in pressure that I used. For the next step, I used 4 positive masks to cover the leaves so that I could blend ink on the background. Again, I struggled to keep everything in place because now not only was I fighting the dimension of the embossing powder, but the ink blending was probably still a little wet, and that tape really didn't want to stick. So if my fingers are looking like they are awkwardly trying to hold it all together, that's because they are. I blended over the little remaining background areas with juniper ink, which is a night sky navy blue. And already these masks are shifting, but don't worry, it all worked out in the end. I went back in with Queen for a Day, which is actually a very deep purple, but paired with the juniper, it just gives a very intense navy blue. So here's how it's looking at this point, and just before I move on, I want to show you how easy it is to clean up this mat. I used a baby wipe and all that deep blue and purple ink moved very easily. I dried it with a paper towel before I put my card back onto it. Any of that dampness is going to warp my card. And speaking of warping, it did warp a bit during all that embossing, but at this point it's pretty flat again. I figured if it was too warped, I could always cut the card front off and use it as a panel on another card base, but stick around and you'll see that I didn't need to do that. The next step was to peel back the purple tape to reveal the white frame and bring my blood pressure back down. I'm feeling better already. I love that crisp look and how it just adds a bit of airiness. And I'm loving these rich colors. What do you think? For my sentiment, I grabbed a thanks sentiment from the Booyah sentiment set, and I used my Misty and the juniper ink to stamp it 3 times along the edge of a scrap panel. I used purple tape to mask the rest of the sentiment, and I moved the panel up along the Misty so that it was stamped in 3 different places. Well, 4 actually, since I moved the panel slightly on one of them and didn't get a crisp impression. I used foam tape to pop them up, and I placed them on the card panel to look like they're kind of floating downward, much like the fall leaves. This randomness helps in a couple of ways. I don't have to worry about them being straight, or even being the exact same size. No one will be able to tell. I added some diamond stickles along the bottoms of the thanks panels for a bit of sparkle, and that finishes the card. I'm loving these rich colors, but I also wondered about getting a different look. So I made another one. This time I stamped the leaves with black ink and I left the background white. Which one do you prefer? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to head to my blog for all the hop details so that you can hop and comment for a chance to win. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up below and subscribe to this channel for more inspiration. Affiliate links are below in the description and also on my blog. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.